Today is May 13th, 2022. My name is Lori Kurtz. My pronouns are she, hers. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell us your pronouns if you care to, and tell us all the things you do.
My name is Dria Dore, or Alexandria. I don't mind if you know my name. And my pronouns are she, her, and sometimes they're fluid, but I would say 99% she, hers.
Yeah.
And I'm a burlesque performer.
Great. What is burlesque?
I would say burlesque is, well, when we're thinking about, I think like the solid definition, if I just wanted to take out any of the neo or nuance, etc., it just form of striptease and sort of captures a particular era of time that is, we would call it more like a vintage and retro means of striptease that can have satire, it can have all kinds of meaning or costuming or drama or theatrics, but it's a very subjective experience because the performer can have a completely different idea of what it is that they want to share with you. But with the striptease involved, it could be taken totally out of context from what it is that the person is performing. So it's an interesting level of striptease, I think. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And when you've put together an act, have you had a reaction like that?
Oh, totally. Oh my God. Yeah. Or thinking that I was like, I would get on stage and I had rehearsed something, got the costume together, had this very particular view of how I wanted this number to go and also how I wanted it to be taken and seen and perceived. But that perception, I specifically remember one time doing a performance it was like a Ray Charles song. This was like when I first started. It was like my first fancy dress that I got made. And then I went out with some friends after the show, and there was a man in the audience who would come up to me, and he was like, I couldn't stop staring at your pasty because like the point right where your nipple is, I just had to I couldn't stop staring at it, and I just loved it so much and just started to spill his guts. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do this fun showgirl number. And then it clicked like, oh yes, I can't control that there are people that are going to be objectifying me in one way or another. So that's kind of part of it is that exchange that, you might have an idea of what it is you're doing and how you feel about it is very different from what an audience member might take from it. So that gets into so many other things, so many other areas of discussion. Yeah. So,
right.
Yeah.
And how do you describe the kind of burlesque that you do?
I would say my style of burlesque is a sort of contemporary take on like a 40s and 50s style showgirl with, I think, of course, with our modern, of course, with like modern music, but really it's sort of my version of what I remember growing up watching. So it really is kind of that 40s and 50s era, the panel skirts and just the makeup and the styling. And I figured that I really enjoy playing with those aesthetics from that time, from the strippers of then. So yeah, I think that's sort of my baseline. But I get inspired by history too, and I get inspired by everything. So especially music. So sometimes I want to do something that's not in that look or style. So.
And you referenced what you grew up watching. What were those references? What were those points?
Oh my goodness. Growing up watching a lot of the Technicolor movies of the 50s, and especially, I know it might sound very cliche, but my mom was a huge Marilyn Monroe fan. And so we watched a lot of Marilyn movies, and Niagara is one of my favorites. But Gentlemen Prefer Blondes has just like a very special place in my heart. And I love Jane Russell too. So, and I just would just love the clothing, all of just everything about it. So it's kind of cool to see how the younger generation have been taking bits and pieces of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, their version of it, um, and really kind of enjoying the message of the characters. But yeah, just growing up watching a lot of Sid Charisse and Dorothy Dandridge, and just that was always very a very ideal version of like this feminine goddess type to me. Like, yeah, Lena Horne and like Lana Turner, and so yeah, I love my old school glamour girls.
Mhm. And then why do you do burlesque? What does it give you that other forms of performance don't?
I do burlesque because, well, there's so many, I feel like there's so many reasons why, aside from the very kind of social and means of reasons why I would do it. It's more, I get to play with the side of myself that wants to be that fabulous showgirl. And it's sort of my own, it's my grown up dress up, really. And I just kind of brought it to life as an adult, going from like tap dance recitals. And like, so here I am in like sparkly costumes, and I just really get to live my best Carmen Miranda impression life, you could say. Like, yeah. And I love it so much. And it just gives me that freedom to be like cheeky and silly and like sexy and fun. And because sometimes I'm pretty introverted and I can be really withdrawn, and I don't always, when people see me as a performer and just when I get that energy out, it's something that I have to do. It's like I have to do it. And if I just sat around in my sweatpants all day, I get depressed. So it's just, which is lovely, and I teach all these other things where I'm in active wear all the time and I never really wear makeup. So it's really just it's my glamour time. It's kind of my me time. It's evolved a lot. Yeah.
Great. Some other performers have talked about how burlesque falls on the spectrum of sex work. And you just mentioned, the particular audience member's reaction. And what's your view on that? Is it sex education? But what's the relationship there?
I would say, I think it's under the umbrella because if we're looking at it from a historical perspective, burlesque is very much the word is, because we use it now to kind of talk about this theatrical way of striptease and fun and satire and commentary, whatever. And if we're looking at it from the past, it's really just the old school strippers. And they were, I mean, a lot of them were doing all kinds of things. So it's very, I think it is under that umbrella. It's just sort of one of the many things that are just there, like many branches and limbs of the tree when we think about it. Because some of the most famous performers, also turn tricks on the sides. And so it's interesting because when you really dig into the lives of these people, you learn more about them and things that they did to get where they wanted to be. Or, yeah, I would say it's a part of it. It's there. There's some level of education, but I think it's just more entertainment. But then that's also subjective because there are people who do it and their whole thing is, we're going to teach you something today, So, yeah, yeah. Hopefully that makes sense.
Great. That's great. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
I am from Portland, Oregon. That is my hometown. My my tagline, or my little slogan, is the Rose City Showgirl. And yeah, I need to trademark that. So hopefully nobody does that when they hear this. But yeah, that's my hometown. I grew up here, born and raised, and my grandfather is from Oregon. My parents, they grew up here. My mother was born here. My dad and her met in high school, and yeah, we're just generations now, and it's very special. And so I love to rep my city when I'm out in the world. It's very important to me. Yeah.
And what did you do in your formative years, whatever those were, that led you to the creative arts, creative fields?
let's see here. Well, I've always been just a dancer, and I've always been really just drawn to the arts. And I used to paint and draw a lot. And it's interesting when you're a child and people take notice of, oh, like you like to draw and paint. And they're kind of like, okay, cute. But then when you really are like, no, I'm thinking about this for like a Brunellesque like perspective, and I'm sitting here trying to paint this cathedral, and or which of course, he wasn't necessarily a painter, but it's when I think about perspective, it's like I think about that part of my tangent. But um, I think about just I always wanted to have this very artistic and free life, and when I was growing up, just that was always taking dance classes or reading about different artists, and just really that was kind of it, really, for me.
Are you from an artistic family?
Um, I don't know. They're kind of a mystery. Like, my my mother and my dad is definitely a mystery. It's like I was thinking that line in Mad Men where he's like, nobody looks under that rock, he could be Batman. And it's my dad is kind of that guy, just very everything's close to the vest. But my mother is a very creative person and like her thought and her curiosity about life. So I grew up with lots of music and art books and architecture, hence why I'm over here talking about like Florentine Renaissance architects. But we just had this bevy of information that was constantly being open, just given to us. And it just really, when I think about like dancers, I think my grandmother, my nan, was probably the only person that I knew of who really loved to dance. And she said during the wartime, she would go out and go dance with her girlfriends. And yeah, apparently she was a really good dancer. But that changed when she married my grandfather because he hated dancing. So they just never went dancing unless it was at the Sherlock Holmes Club. So, yeah.
And then what formal education or training do you have, like college degree or community college or whatever?
Well, I just did some college, but it was more just community college. But I really struggled with why did I want to go and what did I want to do? And so for years, I really struggled with that because I thought, okay, I need to go into academia. I really need to expand and continue my growth after high school. And I tried a few times and I just hated it. And so I went to trade school. Like I'm a licensed esthetician. I did that. And then, yeah, I've just been doing like teacher trainings for different things because now I teach mostly just fitness and dance. But I figured out I would have gone for library science or some kind of history degree. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really it. And so if I had the means to go without any horrendous amount of debt, I'd probably go back to college. Be like, whatever, I'll get my master's when I'm in my 40s. Whatever, it's fine. But yeah, I feel like it finally clicked maybe at the year 30 for me. Like, oh, that's what I would have gone to college for. But yeah, archaeology was just way too expensive and it terrified me to go into that much debt. So I just didn't pursue it.
Yeah.
So some college, but didn't graduate. Long answer.
And so then burlesque. Oh, in what year and how did you get started in burlesque?
Ooh, okay. So first noticed what it was in 2005, the neo burlesque movement. And that was when on dial-up internet, I saw Catherine Delicious' website. And there was this amazing photo of her with these big pink ostrich feather fans. And she was just in this stunning, just sickening pose with that red hair. And I was like, what? Like, I want to do that. So then I learned that she was a stripper and worked like a modern day stripper and worked in clubs and then was doing like feature dancing. I was like, oh, huh. So I thought about it. And then I thought maybe if I started working at a strip club, then I could make the money to get into that kind of thing. And so I ended up, let's see here, kind of was quiet for a few years. I had like a cute little retail job, and then stripping didn't necessarily work out for me. I was like 19. And then in 2009 was when I finally got into performing. And that was through Raylene Courtney. And she produced the Sin Savvy shows. And so that was my official introduction to the world of burlesque. And I was trash. It was bad. Oh, so bad. But that's part of the magic, right? Just, I had all these big ideas, but executing them is a whole other ball game. So yeah, that was it. That was my beginning.
Yeah. Did you take any of the burlesque classes at the academies? Yeah, you already had your dance background.
Yeah. I think too, I was very much an outsider to some because I didn't really know anybody from the community that way. And they all kind of knew each other. And I was, I got back into dancing at clubs again. And so when I started doing burlesque, and in like 2009, 10-ish, that's when I sort of was like the new kid on the block, because people are like, who's this chick that's, she works over at this club and we don't really know her. And so, yeah, I hadn't taken any of the classes, and it was really just me doing my imitations of showgirls that I'd seen, like MGM movies, and just dancing around my living room and getting ideas and collecting books and reading about different showgirls.
Yeah. Was there a resistance you talked about it like there was a small group and hard to break in?
I think it was more just I was so new, and people just didn't really know me. And also I was so young. I think I know that it can be jarring. I mean, somebody said to me not long ago, I had a performance that it was actually probably one of the better things I did when I first started, but it was a whole disaster, like costume malfunction. And I was going through a lot at the time. And that was sort of like the feather that broke the camel's back for me. And I remember just having this, like, I started crying, and it's already kind of embarrassing anyway, because people think that that's the reason why you're crying. But I was so upset, and I realized I was just so stressed out about everything. And she had told me how when she first met me, it was when that happened or something. It was around that time. And she was like, I just remember being like, oh, like, who's this? Like, ooh. And then she was like, but then I realized, like, oh, you're actually really cool. And I was like, thanks, bitch. Like, wow. Okay. So I realized, I know there are times where I probably didn't have I didn't present myself in a way that probably was the most becoming. And I think some of those people thought I was a little off, or, but it's so different now. But I do feel like there were moments where I felt very much kind of sitting on the outside, because I didn't know everybody as well. But they were, you start to ingratiate yourself more. They see you at shows more, and then people start to get an idea of who you are. So I also too, like, really got more in tune with who I am. And I think I chilled out a lot more. So there's that. Yeah.
And your stage name, how did you choose that?
Well, Alexandria, and then I cut it in half, and then it was Xandria. And I thought, okay, Xandria sounds a little bit like Xena, so I'm gonna just take the X and just put an S right there. So Xandria. And now, but then people call me Sangria sometimes, and I'm like, okay, that's annoying. But I didn't think about that at all. No, yeah. But Dore is like gilded in gold or golden, and I just really enjoyed the golden as a sort of, and also kind of a play on like my skin. And I felt like that would be fun to play it, just use as an adjective to, like, okay, I'm gonna say Dore. Once in a blue moon, people will approach me and ask me if I speak French, and very poorly, but Yeah, I wish fluently.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. But so that is how the name came about. Yeah.
Okay. And so you mentioned sort of breaking into this Portland burlesque scene, and you mentioned Sin Savvy. And what were those shows like at that time around 2009, 2010?
Oh, wow. It was a very intimate group of people. We had the regulars that would come, and there were a couple of venues at the time that we would do shows at. And one was the Hawthorne Theater Sidebar, which is a very intimate venue. And, our dressing room was the arcade, little like little arcade section is like a closet basically. And then, and then there was the Barracuda, which was a big nightclub. And that was super fun because that was like the Rose Hips Review kind of thing. And they had the big stage. And so we'd have a blast. It was either this rather large space to really strike out, and then you had the smaller one. So yeah, it was super fun. And it's so funny to think about it now, reflect on it now. It's so different. I just had such like strong like, oh, I'm presenting myself this way and I need to fit this very rigid box. And yeah, it's me being anxious and stressed out about it needs to be done perfectly. And yeah, Sin Savvy was great. The smaller shows were great for like breaking in a new act. That's for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And how were those shows put together? Was there an overarching theme, or did each person work on a piece and then you just came together? How was that all organized?
Well, we would have our producer, who was Raylene at the time, and she would really just kind of contact different artists or different performers, and then they have their individual acts. Sometimes people would do group numbers, but it was mostly just the lineup of the show. Each person would perform. They'd figure out who would go where in the lineup. There'd be an intermission, and then sometimes a big finale number. And that usually was lots of people dancing, or yeah, it was great. We had an MC, Laura Dean, who was fabulous, and just it was a really cool space that was also a safe space for so many people, and especially back in like 2009. So yeah, very different.
A safe space in what way?
It was very like LGBTQI inclusive, and we had this for what being in Portland at the time, a rather diverse cast of performers, and you had queer people, you had non-binary people, you have all kinds of individuals who would go up and do their thing and or have numbers together, and it was just really the audience too. It was cool. It was, and I mean, it's nice that it's still kind of like that. With most of the shows that I feel like I've been in have been rather inclusive and safe in that respect, but especially those ones back then. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, a safe space before we knew safe spaces were needed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bizarro world, like all the upside down occurred. Like,
right.
yeah, I came back with a strange rebrand existence, I guess.
Yeah. And you mentioned the glamour and the costumes and the props and so forth. Where did you get your costumes and props?
I would say most of my costuming I would just find randomly at whether like at a vintage shop if I saw a dress I really liked. Um, or I had the Surge sisters were their name. And when they stopped working together, Tara would make my costumes for me. And so I would just commission pieces, and she would make really cool stuff. And so most of my dresses were made by her, and I would just give her like ideas and photos. So, but my intimates I usually just found at the regular old lingerie store. Yeah, and then that's how I met the Oh Baby ladies too, because I commissioned a corset to be made. It was like made to measure, and my relationship with them has been amazing. They're just always supplying the stockings for me and all those things. So Yeah.
Are they Portland based?
Yeah, they're on Northwest 23rd, and they're a great local lingerie boutique, and I just adore them. They're just such fabulous people. So, yeah.
Great. That's great. So you didn't do burlesque very long before you went to Beehoff for the Weekender in 2013. Can you tell us what Beehoff is, what the Weekender is, and how that all came about?
All right. So, BHOF stands for Burlesque Hall of Fame, and it is one of the large events that happen to also help raise money for the Burlesque Hall of Fame Museum, which there's, well, this is going to be a big one. All right. So, BHOF, there's a great museum there in Vegas. It's pretty small from what I understand, but I believe they might be expanding. And they have tons of memorabilia of burlesque performers, old school strippers, and legends from many, many years ago. And then they hold this big event, and the Weekender is like a combination of the icons or like legends showcase. So you get to see the old school performers come out and like do some of their favorite acts. And then they have awards that they'll present to some people who've been performing for a long time, like the Sassy Lassie Award is one of them. And then they also have, what is it? The competition, which is usually the biggest thing with a lot of folks who fly in from around the world. And they come in, they compete for either like best debut or, you know, best group, and then best duo, things like that. And then there's like Queen of Burlesque, which many years ago it used to be Exotic World, and it was like in the desert. and that's how I remember it when I was younger, looking up like the Exotic World show. And yeah, just it was, I think they had like a makeshift stage and like this Exotic World competition, and like some thing, like maybe some metal made sign. I'm not sure exactly, but I just remember seeing the great photos of it, and people would go compete for that. And now it's at the Orleans. So now they got the big theater space for that. And then let's see here. I got into the best debut well, not best debut, but best duo with Russell. And he really, like, we just knew each other from performing around. And he just reached out to me one day and was like, hey, do you want to do like a number together? And we could like put something fun together. I was like, all right, sure. And so we did. And like we danced together for a minute. And he really kind of like helped me hone in on some of like classic dances like the waltz or things like that. And I pretty much, we just kind of cooked up this idea like, let's just do this like fun dance together, like striptease, but with tumbling. And I was like, you know what? I could do a split drop from your knees. And he was like, really? Okay, cool. So we worked that out. And I don't know if I could even do that now, which when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, can I do a split drop? And like kill my hamstrings. But so that's how that came about. We just connected, and he asked me about performing. And then while we were sort of fine tuning the act, we had done a couple of gigs around Portland. He's like, let's submit it to Beehoff and just see what happens. And I was like, all right, cool. So we did. And then we were like, we were accepted. And then we went and we performed, and we won. And now I have the trophy in my house. I'm like, all right, we did that. Cool. So yeah, it's sort of like, all right, we did it. You know, look at us do our thing, and then see you later. Yeah.
And submitting, applying to Beehoff, what was that process like in 2013?
Back then it was, you would just send in a video and to like, yeah, to this email, and I believe you pay the fee to apply. They have their little application process. And yeah, they review the video, and then they will make their selection. And they usually send, I believe they let you know ahead of time, and then they'll send out another email and let you know. And yeah, then you kind of get all the rundown of like what you need information wise about showing up, being there, time, etc. So
Mhm.
yeah, I remember feeling that like white hot nervousness, as I always get nervous before I perform. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. Yeah. And so I kind of went into like a fugue state and just did it. It's like, here we are doing this thing. And I had just got back from London. As I remember, I was flying home, and I think I flew from London to Portland, and then like a couple of days later flew to Vegas, I think. Because all that, yeah, because 2013 was when I was out in England for a minute.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a lot of traveling. Wow.
Yes. So you did go to the London Burlesque Festival in 2013, right before Beehoff. And I saw that it was billed as your European debut. So tell us about that adventure.
Thank you. I loved it. I went with my mother we went for a month actually. So we kind of got to do a mother-daughter trip. It was really special. And we just had a lot of great times exploring, because my grandmother is from Tottenham. So she's from up north. And so it was really cool to finally get over there and just explore and do all of like the touristy things, but also just revisit places with my own mother, who had gone there a lot as a kid during summertime when she was growing up. And yeah, it was. I got into the festival and met with Betty, who is just fabulous, and we still keep in touch. Actually, when I think about how long it's been, like wow. And yeah, they put me in the show, and I had a blast, and it was just really great to meet all of these people. And also too, for me, it was the connection of the audience was so different compared to what I had experienced back in Portland.
How
And
so?
I feel like people just were so much more accepting and open to seeing me be up there. And I just remember feeling like I really was struggling with connecting with the audience in Portland the same, just really just connecting with them in a way. I'm like, I know I'm doing this. I believe in what I'm doing. And I know that it's just going to get better if I just keep doing it. And because I was performing at Sinferno, which is at Dante's bar downtown. And sometimes I would do a number and it would just be like crickets, and people just wouldn't respond, or it just didn't, I never got that feeling from people.
Mhm.
And then when I went over there, it was like people were like, "Woo!" Like I came out and it was just like, "Oh, hi!" Just people were excited to see me, and it was so different. It was so different, and yeah, I loved it. I fell in love with being over there, and I miss it all the time, actually. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think I, I'm just making this up. The England has that history of the music hall tradition. And do you think audiences in Portland just needed to learn what burlesque was?
I think they kind of, I believe that they have an idea, and especially back then, because we had the audience and we had people who'd show up and were really appreciative. But sometimes it just felt like, I mean, also too, I'm, a pretty heavily tattooed woman. I'm a Black woman, and like, here's this heavily tattooed Black woman walking out on stage that's like being glamorous and over the top. And I think that there are people that definitely felt very put off by that because they don't want to find me attractive. And the reason I say that too is because I've had people say to me specifically that they, weren't trying to find me, like me as a darker complected person, attractive, especially like in relation to blackness and seeing glamour and beauty. It was something that for them was not part of their perception of what was considered beautiful. And yeah, and just hearing people say like, I saw you and I couldn't help but stare, and it really, and just seeing like the conflict that it brought, and it's like, why is that even a problem? which of course, racism and all these issues apply overseas as well. So, but there was just something different about it that, because that's what it felt like to me. I think too, maybe our city in Portland is so saturated with modern day strip clubs that intersect of strippers, modern day strippers, and burlesque performers, and like that theatricality hadn't really crossed over yet, because some people had some issues with it. They were like, oh, if you're working at a club and then you're doing burlesque, it was like people were kind of like, how can that happen? Because we thought we weren't invited, or so it was very, but nobody really outright said anything nasty in the Portland scene like that. But I would hear things from other people like, oh yeah, they don't really like strippers because they don't really perform, things like that. So there was all kinds of, there are a lot of things. And I think too, the customers were like, if they showed up at a burlesque show, some of them might have been expecting more nudity, where there are some burlesque performers that do straight up nude acts. So that's where it's like, it's where it's very subjective of, what somebody wants and how they feel about their performance. So yeah, it was just very, I think they were like expecting like pull tricks and lucite heels, where now we do see that. But then like there were people doing it back then too. So that's why it's hard to like really pinpoint what it was. But I think just for the general public, it was very, the expectation I think was a little different when they'd show up to a burlesque show.
Yeah.
It's very
Do you think in the last 10 years since then, do you think the audience has caught up to?
Oh my God, yeah. When I see like corporate burlesque performers now, they're sponsored, that are getting these huge props made and they're doing these big corporate gigs, it's wild. It's so wild. I'm like, wow, who are these people? Like, where did they come from? How? Yeah, and it's interesting to see, because it's so much more mainstream. I see so many people who are like, oh, I want to get into it. And you see a lot of younger people who talk about it and want to get involved. But it's also, I mean, you're up there doing your thing and you're strutting your stuff. And, some people, they have a very specific and interesting look that they're going for, and they have a style that might not be considered like mainstream sexy. Or if, they're maybe pulling like a Klaus Nomi sort of thing with burlesque involved. It's like, okay, but somebody's liking it, So, but then I often feel like I see a lot of younger people who they want the glamour. They want to put on the bumper bangs. They want the big hair. They want the pasties. And it's it's so mainstream now, I feel. But it's also tough, because the more I feel it's become mainstream, it's also becoming this, only particular people are picked out to showcase a very specific look. So, maybe ethnically ambiguous women who are very thin with breast implants, or if you have a lot of tattoos, you need to be a hard body with breast implants. I feel like the boob job thing is like blown up. It's so big. And like, I got them done a long time ago, because I wanted to break into this mainstream thing, but I was told I had too many tattoos and my look was just, and then like now I don't have breast implants anymore. I got them taken out, and it's so different. And I'm like, should I have just stuck with it if I wanted to? But I realized it's just not me anymore. I just don't care about it that way anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So interesting. Do you think something's gotten lost in the sort of the grittier, smaller scene, the DIY props and costumes to today? Is there something that's gotten lost?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are still working really hard at just, they're honing their craft, and it just never stops. I mean, and I mean, also too, like earlier talking about like having the boobs and all of that, I feel like a lot of people are investing in themselves, whether it's also mending their costumes or also working on themselves. It's like, if this is what works for them, that's great, more power to you. But it's when I hear people say that they feel like they're trapped in a look or a style, and like they have a contract and they can't change anything, and they're really struggling with finding that passion for why they started performing. That's where it gets really, I think that's where it gets tough for some. Um, but I feel like the DIY factor is still very much there, because I mean, so much of it is just the brainchild, your ideas that come to you and what you bring to fruition on stage, and how that evolves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have a rhinestone project I need to finish for tonight. I'm like, this is only gonna be half done. That's fine, but that's okay. Before I would have been like, I can't be up there with partially rhinestone garters. Now I'm like, that's fine. They'll be fine. They'll love it. It's all good. I love it. That's all that matters.
Right. So you mentioned the Beehoff and the Weekender and the Legends. Uh, you performed with a legend at the Star Theater. You performed with Tempest Storm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
describe who the legends are and why they matter to the neo-burlesque community, and then tell me about that experience.
Well, I'll start with the legends and why they matter. I mean, they're the living history of the strip, and they really they have such a wealth of information, also technique and style too, of how to execute certain things with striptease, like whether it's a glove peel, stocking peel. There's so many cool things you can learn from these people, and also just their lived experience and hearing what it was like for them to go out there and perform and tour and deal with the different laws and codes for bars at the time, or like venues or theaters. And so it's very I think it's very important to pay homage to them, because they're just like these wild and free people at some point in history, especially during a time, if we're talking about, I mean, Tempest died not long ago, and I mean, she was one of the last of the 40s performers, like the old school. And so it was cool to meet her. She was incredibly quiet, and she was so tiny, just tiny, tiny woman. And I mean, I didn't really get to have like much of a conversation with her. It was just really cool to kind of like be in proximity with her, and to be in the show. And um, she hosted the show. She didn't really perform so much. She just kind of like did her thing. And yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was cool to have lunch with her and hang out with like a small group of girlfriends and just kind of listen to what she had to say. And but yeah, she was extremely quiet. And I know that she at times can be a controversial figure, because there was a lot of drama when apparently she had supported 45, and a lot of people were just like, ah, boo, hiss. And so, I mean, that's also the other thing. It's like we're talking about individuals with their personal politics and beliefs. So we don't necessarily know everything about everybody. And sometimes they'll drop some bombs on you. Some folks were not happy about that. So yeah, it was an interesting experience, but it wasn't, I didn't have the opportunity to really chat with her, but
Yeah,
it was cool to say that I did a show and she was there and she hosted it. So, and I got to meet her. So that's cool.
you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you went to Finland with Cirque Erotique. Tell me, how did that happen?
That was a time. Oh man. So Avizia was just like another just wild child free magical babe. She
And that's Avizia Dakini.
yeah, yeah. So they put together this like competition. It was just this, I don't know. I'm like, girl, you don't need to do a competition, but I guess they wanted to do something fun. So they did this competition. She hit me up. She's like, hey, do you want to like perform at this thing? And I was like, I'm not really into competing. Like, maybe, I don't know. And she was like, yeah, babe, like just come do it. Just do a number, have fun. It's not like anything wild. And And I was like, well, okay. And I was like, was there any like theme? Is there anything in particular I should do? She's like, well, just do whatever you want. I was like, okay. so, so I was like, I'll do some pole and burlesque and just kind of marry the two things that I love to do. And so I brought feather fans. I had this idea that I was going to do some kind of like like gold gilding myself, I guess, like gold leaf, but that just did not work out very well. So I definitely needed somebody to help me with that. And did this performance, and I came out in a leather jacket and just this gold sparkly bikini and just like ripped it up on the pole. And then I finished it with like a big classic feather fan dance. And I got like runner up for this competition. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, sure, whatever. Then and so I didn't go because my friend Mandy, she won and she ended up going, which she deservedly so. She did this beautiful number. And then fast forward a few years, the people from Turku Sex, like the convention they put on their show, they had shown up and they were looking for people to bring on this tour again, and they saw me perform and they were like, hey, do you want to, Avizia hit me up again, she's like, do you want to come with? And I was like, okay, sure. And she's like, yeah, it's those people we did that competition a long time ago. It's like, yeah, all right. So I ended up part of the group, and then we had to figure out what we were doing. So we started to work on group numbers. We did a really fun group number with Isaiah Esquire, and that was really cool. And yeah, we just showed up in Finland, and it was quite the experience. And just did all these different things. There was like more going on that they wanted us to do. Like I was supposed to like teach some pole to these people at a nightclub, and I had never taught pole before, so I just felt very like, oh my god, what am I doing? And I just felt so stupid and embarrassed. So of course I kind of froze. And then Monica, who's this incredible pole champion, he was also teaching, so he was teaching people how to do things. And so it was very like, here we are doing this show, and I didn't really know everything about what we were doing. I feel like we got relayed a lot of information. And yeah, we did it though. We worked it out. It's very different place than Portland. It was, yeah. I remember being like, all right, we are in Finland. We are in Turku, Finland. This is it. Yeah, it was definitely an experience. The convention was it was pretty big, and like from stage to our dressing room, and just like running through this massive hallway and twists and turns. And then they had a feature porn star there who was performing, and I think it was Jessie Jane. It was, I believe, what's her name. And she was very, very popular in like 2010s era of porn. So it was very like, I was like, this is my life. All right, this is what we're doing. So it was yeah, it was an experience.
And
Yeah.
you said we just showed up in Finland. Now, I know that doesn't really just happen. I've traveled internationally. It doesn't just happen.
Oh God.
For these international or these competitions, I mean, who pays the way? Do you have an agent? Who provides housing? The logistics of it?
It was UC, I believe was his name. And then I can't remember the name of the other producer for the event, but he owned I believe a tattoo and piercing shop. And his partner at the time, Lucky Hell, was hosting, and she was involved and kind of like knew Avizia, and like of course still does. They're good friends. And so they kind of they had this big event, the Turku Sex thing. And I believe it was marketed more towards like younger people, like university age kids. And you would show up and you could like party and like have drinks and watch people pole dance. It was very like grown up and sexy fun time. And so they had cultivated this thing, and then they wanted entertainment. So they asked us this ragtag group of performers from Portland to like come out and yeah, it was a lot of airplanes, trains, planes, and automobiles. And I don't sleep on planes very well. So I didn't sleep the entire flight from Portland to Finland, and it was rough. I was so exhausted. But yeah, we got there and they handled all of our accommodations, etc. And so it was very just like exploring Turku, like figuring out this very different space. And but it was, I mean, it was cool. Like I had moments where I felt very stressed out, and like I'd sit in my dressing room and kind of have like a silent cry. So I'm like, what is happening? Like, what are we doing today? And just kind of adjusting, and also just feeling like I really wanted to focus on like the performance factor and not so much you're a stripper and we want you to just show up and be sexy. And there were times where they're like, oh, we have this new thing we're going to do. There's like a little side stage where you can like strip and make money off of people. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. And they're like, well, don't you want to make money? I'm like, yeah, you paid me to be here. Like that's my money. So it was very, I had kind of a love-hate moment with it. And but ultimately it was a really cool experience. And I think it taps into just exploring why that would frustrate me, and where does that like tidbit of shame come from. But I honestly feel it was just my own personal boundaries of being a dancer and a performer, and really just wanting to focus on that more so than like smiling at some dude who has a beer who's really drunk and wants to grab my boobs. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. I want to do this other thing. So I'm going to focus on this. So I was a little bit of a brat and just like didn't even do it. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna wait for the next stage time for our performance. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was pretty silly.
great, great.
Thanks.
So I found your name on, well, many places, but the Black Burlesque directory, and you're listed in that. What is that? Who started it? Why is this important?
Oh my goodness, I actually forgot who started it, which is terrible. I'm like, wait a minute, because I forgot that I had sent my info to be included, and
Yeah,
I got
it's actually I already know the answer to
oh,
this. It's Pochop.
okay, cute.
Yeah,
I love it. Yes, yeah. It had been some time. I think when I submitted my info,
it
mostly,
was
yeah.
started in 2015, and we have had a pandemic, and you've had a child, and so that's probably fine. But why is it important, and why did you join it?
Well, a big part of why I perform is because of representation, and it's a huge one for me. And I think too, just knowing that that needs to be there, because a lot of the big burlesque names that we see that are very popular and famous, that are the Lily St. Cyrs, the Tempest Storms, like these are people who, it's mostly white women and it's mostly white people. And a lot of that speaks from just segregation that was happening at the time. And just, you hear about Noelle Toy, or you hear about Jean Idell, but they're not often seen in the forefront as important, because they didn't have that kind of mainstream recognition. That doesn't mean that they were any less important. And I think it's very vital. I made my husband's home. So I love you. I think it's important to have that representation, because we need to see that it's not this. There's more to it. There's always going to be more to the history of everything, and we need the perspective, we need the experience. And it's so vital to just collect that information, because we don't always see ourselves, like how I said, growing up watching old movies, and whether it's sitting in a theater watching Gone with the Wind, and the only Black people I see are people who are enslaved. And just thinking about that now, being like, wow, you know, that's what a lot of people just saw back then when they went to a big film. And then, you know, so it's kind of part of me and my tangent, but there's very distinct thing that happened to me when I first started performing burlesque. We did this parade with like the Sin Savvy early burlesque days, like way back in the day. We did we sat in the back of a truck for the Pride parade for like Portland Pride. And, you know, all of us are there. We were like super early in the morning. And I just remember we were driving up the street. And as the parade is going, of course, we're going like less than 5 miles an hour. So we're all cruising around. And this group of kids, they were really young and they probably were like teenagers or something. And they all run up and they're like, that's Sandria. Like you know, oh my God, everybody, it's Sandria. And they like ran up and they're just like, oh my God, we've seen you at the CUDA. Like and I'm like, you saw me? How'd you get to do a bar? And I'm like, are you like, really, am I tripping? So, but they were so young and just like these young queer kids that were just out in the scene. And like the Escape was like an underage gay club and like queer club that I used to go to when I was like 19. And so it was cool to see like very young people that were out and about. And so for Pride, like knowing that these kids saw me, but like there were all these like, they were just beautiful Black children. And here I was like sitting in the back of a truck like, and I'm like, I ain't shit, but you know who I am? And that's when it really hit me. Like it was really special. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like for me, that's how I felt when I saw Pearl Noir get a standing ovation at the Aladdin back in like 2011, I think. And just seeing that she could do that in Portland. And I was like, that was, and I literally lost it. I was just moved, so deeply moved, and was sobbing. And she was like, oh my God, like, oh man. And she's like, are you like, hi. And it just was so special because that representation, it's like, that's what I dream of. And that's what I dreamt of. And I saw it happen and I knew it was possible. And I never forgot that. And that's why I keep doing what I do. And I hope that somebody sees me and is inspired. And, you know, and also too, it's like, here's this Black woman with all these tattoos that's doing this thing. And yeah, it's like, I'm beautiful. And I think it makes up for many years of having people tell me that I wasn't beautiful enough to do this, which might sound really kind of trivial to some, but when you're a kid and people literally just don't treat you with that kind of kindness, and a lot of it is because of how you look, and usually they directly say it's because of how you look, like, oh, I thought you were a little boy, but you're a girl, but you're not really that pretty. And it's weird when you start to understand that like being pretty and beautiful is power, but also it's bottom power because it only works with people that see you as worthy. And it's also just shitty. It's a shitty thing, but everybody deals with it. So there's so many layers to everything that I'm saying right now, but it's like, let's have therapy time with Sandria. It's rough, but yeah, it's weird. But it means so much. So that's a huge part of why, because we are glamorous and beautiful when so many people for years have been saying that we're not, and we're trash and we're garbage and we're gross and we're ugly and having dark skin is bad and blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and it still happens. It still happens across cultures and different races of people. It's a mess. It's like, you know, so yeah, it's very important.
And you represented in a documentary. You were in a documentary called The Glitter Tribe. How did that come about?
You know, Zora Van Pavanien had asked me about meeting with the director, and we met, and it was all right. I was like, you know, I kind of had hemmed and hawed about doing the project. And I felt like I would do it if I could I would out myself to the world as a stripper. There are a bunch of people yelling outside. Sorry. I'm like, what's going on? Anyway, okay. yeah, I felt like if I could talk about race, if I could talk about representation, if I could have that very real conversation, um, and then I would be willing to do it and out myself. And that was, yeah, so we did the interview. It was a pretty long interview. And yeah, and then I saw the film and I was like, all right, well, it didn't really touch on the subjects that I had brought up, and that's not to say that I expect my entire interview to be in it. Wasn't anything like that. I just felt like it was more of a project for my friends and for my fellow co-stars. So yeah, that happened. I was like, all right, well, I had my feelings about it. I had my words about it, and it is what it is, I guess.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you toured around not only internationally, but then within Oregon and to small towns like Coos Bay and
Yes.
Astoria. And so what is it like doing burlesque in small towns?
Oh my God, that was one of the best shows. That theater was beautiful. It's huge. And that was such a fantastic show, or at least from my experience, like going out there and performing, just like they just lit up. And I mean, they got lit though. Like I was like, whoa, is this kind of like the big thing happening for this evening? But yeah, people got drunk and were just rowdy. It was it was a wild ass time. But I had a blast. I had a blast. And the crew was just, the cast was fabulous. And it's like my friend Jayla is now on that show with Lizzo and is like touring with Lizzo. And it was such a cool show to do because it was actually when I found out I was pregnant, and she was the first person I told. And yeah, I believe it was that Coos Bay show. And I was like, I'm pregnant and like, I'm gonna be a mom. She was like, bitch, like, really? So it was really cool. So yeah, it's really great to go out to these small towns and to perform. And I feel like it really just it brings the people that need it and need to be a part of it, that aren't driving all the way up to Portland, or, they need that. And they were in it and they were having a blast. And if people didn't like it, I couldn't tell. I mean, just, yeah, it was really cool. Um, yeah. I think too, some people thought that I was a drag queen because we had a lot of like drag people that were kind of part of the crew. So some folks were like, wow, you're really beautiful. Which I love it. I was like, that's fine. That's totally cool. I'm honored if anybody would associate me with like a fierce drag queen, because so many of the queens I know are just phenomenal. So yeah, um,
Great,
yeah,
great.
always a good time.
And so I saw you in 2019 at the Oregon Burlesque Festival.
Yes.
And, my takeaway was, a Cleopatra kind of look. What's your artistic process in developing an act? Is it music first, costume, message?
Um, it's usually music. And I think ever since I was a kid, if I hear something that just strikes me, I can just envision myself moving to it. And that's kind of how like choreography comes about for me. It's only recently when I'll just be in silence and be able to do different moves and kind of work it out. But song will really inspire me the most. And back then, for that number in particular, the song is called Anubis, and it's by a group called Monstex. It's either a group or an individual. They're kind of a mystery. I've tried to look them up, but Monstex does the song. And I could just, when I closed my eyes, I could just see the movement, and I just love that song so much. And then I was reading this book about Cleopatra, and I really love the tale of her meeting with Caesar, and how quite it could be somewhat possibly made up, we don't know, but how she's rolled up in the carpet and they roll her out. So we actually did that for a show. where they carried me out on a carpet and rolled me out. I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. And I think too, I mean, her being like Greek Macedonian and not necessarily being of Egyptian origin, but she was one of, apparently from what I understand, she was one of the first of the Ptolemaic people in her family that actually learned how to speak Egyptian and really work with the culture and the people at the time. So she was quite popular, but she also knew how to spin things and was very good at, really good at like, you could say somewhat propaganda and getting herself out there. I mean, granted, she was murderous queen, so there's that. So, like, there's probably some level of sociopathy going on there, like psychopathic behavior. But, um, but yeah, I was very inspired by history too, and just kind of like, it kind of took little pieces of that and incorporated into the look. But I also am a sucker for a bob. I love a beautiful, crisp bob. So I had that wig. It's like, I have to wear this. And but I kind of retired some pieces of it, of the look, because I don't want to be disrespectful to ancient Egyptian culture, considering I'm not of ancient Egyptian or North African descent. So so that was kind of the last time I really I really wore that whole look. And but it was fun, and I think being rolled out of a carpet is always an experience. Granted, I don't think I did that at the Oregon Burlesque Festival. Okay, cool. But I did that at Voyeurism. That was fun. It was great. It was very goddess-like. My stinky carpet.
Oh, that's funny. So we are getting into more modern times here. So there's this little COVID pandemic shut down Oregon on March 19th in 2020, about 2 years ago. How did that pandemic affect the Portland burlesque scene?
Well, I think a lot of people were concerned about the venues and not being able to perform if they couldn't maintain space to do that anymore. And unfortunately, capitalism kept rolling, and a lot of people just couldn't afford to keep their businesses open while still having to pay rent or, for the space. And so that was really difficult to hear about how many businesses closed because they were still being charged, but then weren't, they couldn't operate. So it just didn't make any sense. I think too, a lot of people started to fundraise and try to to gain funds to just keep spaces open, keep venues open.
Mhm.
And I feel we're pretty lucky that we have some folks who were able to maintain a lot of the original venues. So we haven't really lost, I don't think we really lost too many that were holding like smaller shows, even like the Star Theater is still there. So that's cool. But yeah, it was very much a quiet time. And then like people did virtual shows. And so they were working it. Like people really got into their cam work. That all popped off. So yeah.
And so now post-COVID,
Mhm.
what are the COVID protocols in place to protect performers and then backstage people and then audience?
Well, this is where it gets tough because, of course, people are still getting COVID, and we're doing shows, and they, require the vaccination proof. Some places, I'm pretty sure, don't always ask. It is what it is.
Mm.
But I got my vaccine card, and we have our masks, and I do see people still perform with masks. They just accessorize it to fit their costume, which is pretty cool. Some people don't when they're on stage, they don't wear a mask. So it's really just staying up on keeping, hands clean and making sure people are just feeling safe and respected in their space. But holding a burlesque show, it's sometimes really difficult to stick to the protocol when, people are at the bar getting drinks, everyone's lined up. It's just, I feel like a lot of people are just kind of going about life as it was. And so yeah, it's interesting. A lot of my friends who were working in strip clubs at the time were really struggling when things went into lockdown. That was rough because like friends were losing their apartments. They couldn't afford to stay and live where they were. And that was really rough. So clubs they're open, they're operating. It's just kind of a roll of the dice. You might get COVID, you might not. Most people I know were getting COVID from work, and it was usually from a customer that was, yeah, it was wild in the beginning, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the pandemic affect your creativity at all?
I actually really reveled in just sitting back and like taking pause. I feel very blessed and very, very grateful that I could, because my husband and I still were able to work. And that's when I ended up becoming a pole dance instructor, because the aerospace where I teach, they were like, we're open, we are seeking teachers, but we don't have a huge capacity and everybody's spaced out already. So it was kind of great. So I was able to work still and like train for a new job. And then my husband works where he works on bikes and things. And so he's pretty isolated in his space. So everybody was already spaced out to begin with. So we were very fortunate that we could still operate, do our thing, business as usual, but I gotta stay home a little bit more than before when things really locked down. So my creativity wasn't interrupted as much. I think I just was able to rest and recharge. Like, yeah, it was good. Me in like sort of a bittersweet kind of way, because I know it wasn't good for others.
Yeah.
So
So people in burlesque say it empowers them. What's your take on that?
I think it's incredibly empowering to have any control over your image and how you present yourself, especially when it comes to creativity. And it's only not empowering if you were doing something that you don't feel that you feel good about, and or if you're doing a gig or you're working in a venue or space with somebody that is not appreciative of you. And I think it's incredibly empowering anytime that you can take control over your image and what you want to do for yourself and present it like, I'm going to go out there and I wear a cowboy hat, whatever, and like a monocle, or it's just, I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to do this thing where do a political statement in my performance. Go for it. I think it's incredibly empowering to present this fun artistic way with also the strip that's different from if you were, all right, I have to go to work at 10. I have to go to the club and make sure I'm on time and go up on stage and dance and smile at people and sell drinks. Very different from that. So I think it's incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got away with things there that I don't think I ever would have been able to do when I worked in modern day strip clubs. So yeah.
Great. Great. And then people talk about burlesque as a force for social change. What do you think about that?
I think anytime you have the expression and can give it to the general public, whether it's, they pay admission to come to a show, you can create that change. You can comment on something the way that you choose to, and it can be very much a part of what's happening. And whether it's like Anita Berber peeing on a table in Berlin, or like, or it's, who's let's see here, Viva Las Vegas, when she wrote her book, and just, I know that she just spoke at TED, which is really cool. And it's a very unique and interesting woman right there. And I got to do a police number. It was like a police cops number it's like a Dead Kennedys set, and shotgun some beers, and which I don't drink beer, but I had like Know Your Rights written on my back. So it was a different take on what would be like my classic performance of showgirl. And instead it was something a little bit different. It was talking about police brutality, and especially to that song, which is so interesting now. Here we are and what's going on with police reform and what people are saying about the cops. And so it's amazing how shit hasn't really changed. Like it just kind of has come back around. So it's a fantastic way of being able to share your thoughts and feelings and expression about what's going on with a performance commentary. So yeah, I think, and you can fundraise for organizations that you believe in. There's so many opportunities to take this dance, this art, this performance, this strip fun, and use it for good if you want, or use it for evil. It's, some people do that too. So yeah, absolutely.
Great, great. And so then, final question. What do you wish the general public would understand about burlesque?
That the performer is going to feel how they're going to feel about the strip, and just take what you're seeing and enjoy it. And if you have questions and are curious, be respectful. And yeah, don't assume anything about anyone. I think that's number one. I mean, I feel people should do that in their daily life, but just don't assume things about people. And yeah, and if you hate it, come back anyway. Yeah, I think yeah, no, I think that's what I would tell people.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.